Hi YouTube, how are you doing today? This is Dollface. If you're here for the latest anime reviews and up-to-date books to hit the shelves, you are in the wrong place. My channel is dedicated towards books and anime that were popular years ago, but you just somehow missed the bandwagon on them, and we're here to talk about them today. So we are finally finished the Discovery of Witches, or A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat that I had a really love-hate relationship with this book. I mean, when I first saw it in the bookstore, in the library, I thought it was gorgeous. Check that out. It's got a lovely navy blue or sapphire blue cover, and you know, it's a nice thick volume. I'm a sucker for thick books. I think they make for great adventures, and I just thought that it was beautiful. The symbols on it look like alchemy, maybe something from astronomy. It's got these beautiful symbols on it, and if you turn it to the side, I could be wrong, but that may be perhaps Vatican City. I'm not sure, but it's very beautiful, the front and the back. I just took to it immediately and I thought, I've got to read this. But upon reading it, upon starting it, I realized that I couldn't get into it. It's not, by the way, it's not my first time reading it, it's my third. This is my third time reading A Discovery of Witches. The first time was years ago, and it was boring, lulling me to sleep. I couldn't get past many of the chapters and pages. There were actually some times where I would skip paragraphs or maybe even pages because I wasn't accustomed to the author's writing style. And this particular author, Deborah Harkness, I haven't read any of her books, but it seems as though she's trying to impart so much knowledge upon us, and I'm all for learning something new when I'm reading a new book, but it almost felt like reading a textbook sometimes. If you're not familiar with certain disciplines like alchemy, physics, history, mythology, genetics, you know, it can be kind of nervous. You can get kind of nervous when you're reading it, and it's like, I don't know any of these people, I don't know any of these places, and I don't know their significance. When you go to school and you learn about, you know, the typical U.S. Events, you learn about maybe, I don't know, the Bay of Pigs and the Boston Tea Party and the Patriot Act. You know what those things mean to you, mostly because, like, you know, they're from your country. You know about historical events in your country, but when it comes to other things that, you know, you kind of have to be a little bit of a aficionado in, or kind of like, you know, nerd out about a little bit, then if you're not into those kind of things, you're going to be very, really lost. And I'm sorry if I'm sweating. It's just really, really hot in my apartment, but I don't want to let the sounds from outside come in. So I got this itty bitty fan going. So that's like why my Sesshomaru poster is kind of wafting. Isn't he gorgeous? Anyway, so I didn't really appreciate the fact that the author was pouring so much of her knowledge into this one book. It's kind of like she was trying to show us how much she knew. And it's kind of like a turnoff for me. And so I ended up actually shelving it back and not going back for it again. Second time I looked the book up, it was on my Nook, and I thought maybe because the book is so big I didn't like toting it around so much. So I put it on my Nook and realized that it's still boring, it still wasn't captivating me, and I just wasn't feeling it anymore. And also the reason why is because I don't really like e-readers as much as I thought I did. I just really like the feel of paper. So I think paper trumps e-readers, sorry. So I put it back on the shelf again. The third time, this is my third attempt and most successful one, I picked up the book, I read it, and I completed it. And I really had to push forward reading this book. I mean, there were times when I would be reading a page and like 320, and in like an hour I'd be on 322, and it's like, I'm not this kind of reader. I'm better than this. I'm better than this. I can read books quickly, but I didn't find all that much enjoyment out of it. I really had high hopes. We're thinking this is going to be some great intellectual magical series and just have some fun with it, but I don't mean to disrespect the author or even Stephanie Meyer, but it just seemed like an adult Twilight. And I'm very discouraged as to like how the story was put together. The author is very intelligent, but I don't think she's the best storyteller. She's more so factual rather than whimsical. I think that's the matter. But the plot overall, the one solid plot that we're supposed to be focusing on, because if you read A Discovery of Witches, you realize that there's so many overarching plots all over the place. Ashmole 782, the congregation, time traveling. There's so many different plots that you forget which the important one that you're supposed to be following. And the storyline is great, but that's the only reason why I decided to go on to the second book. Let me hold it better. The second book, Shadow of Night. But I'll get into that a little later on. There's two things that struck out to me when I was reading Discovery of Witches. And the first thing was I don't like it when a character disavows their birthright. I feel like when a character disavows their birthright, then we lose out on the chance to explore the lore and the experiences of the person and their world. I mean, imagine if like Hagrid had come to Harry's shed in the middle of the ocean and he said, "You're a wizard, Harry," and Harry's like, "That's cool, but no thanks." Like, we'd be cheated out of the entire wizarding world. We wouldn't get to know anything about Diagon Alley or Gringotts Bank or Quidditch. We wouldn't know any of those things. So when the main character disavows their birthright, we are forced to suffer their mediocrity. And if anything, it's always when they're trying to pass for the most normal thing ever. In this case, Diana wants to pass as being a human. And when I read these books, when you're surrounded by demons and vampires and witches, and then we had to suffer and look at the perspective of a human or someone who's pretending to be a human, it's a bore. It's a bore. You have Diana's witch friend, Gillian Chamberlain, or she's really more of like a acquaintance. Her acquaintance, Gillian Chamberlain, who's part of the neighborhood of witches. And so Gillian's always asking her, "Why don't you come to Mabon? What are you doing for the festival?" And then Diana's like, "I'm not going to Mabon. I'm not doing any of that." And it's like, I want to know. I want to know what it's like to be a witch in a coven. I want to know what they do to celebrate Mabon during the festival. And the fact that she said no, this kind of made me think that, oh, God, you're so boring, and I don't want to like go along with whatever you're doing. I don't want to learn about history from your perspective. It's like reading a textbook. You're putting me to sleep, Diana. And it's not even like she would try to, well, I'm not going to use magic all the time. I use magic a little bit. She doesn't use it at all. And that's what made me think like, oh gosh, how long are we going to have to do this for? Chapter 21. Chapter 21, maybe 22 long chapters before Diana's like, you know what? There might be something to this whole witchcraft thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, are you serious? It took forever. So for those people who didn't give up on the book, for the people who did give up on the book, chapter 21 and 22 was where you had to roughly get to before it actually starts getting better. So I apologize for that. I have to honestly, I feel sorry for Diana because the reason why she doesn't like witchcraft is because her parents were killed because of their involvement with it when she was at a very young age. So I guess she thinks if I don't have anything to do with it, if I don't have any say in it, if I don't participate in any of the activities, or if I don't, associate myself with any kind of practices and ceremonies, I can't get hurt. And I guess I can understand that. So for that, I will pardon her just a smidge. Another reason why I feel sorry for Diana is because she doesn't want to owe any of the things that she works hard for to her witchcraft. When it comes to her work as a professor, she's proud of the fact that I can do this by myself. I don't have to rely on my powers. Everything comes from here. Everything comes from long, hard work in the office, in the library, studying, researching, getting to know my craft, no pun intended, but really understanding the course material and finding out all these things on my own. And so I admire her for that, because it's kind of personal for me that, or for anyone, for when you're born into certain conditions, it's like you have to live a certain way. So I am born into Jamaican heritage, and it can be really annoying when you tell someone that you're insert ethnic group here, and then all of a sudden people just start asking these questions. Oh, so you know how to make, curry goat and jerk chicken and oxtail, and it's just like, come on now. I just can I am so much more than that, I can get some of that good weed, and it's just like, I don't even, participate in things like that. I'm not, just because you are, XYZ doesn't mean that you're all about XYZ. You're so much more than what people try to stereotype you to be. And I can actually relate to that. You just want to live and you just want to be you. Hamish actually says on page 184, can you imagine the pressure, not to mention the awful sense that your life didn't belong to you? And I can understand where she's coming from. She comes from a long line of prestigious, well-known and respected witches in the Salem community that come from the Salem line. And for that, it has to have a lot of pressure on her to perform well. But she is also a female, well-renowned, respected professor at Oxford University. And for that, I know she definitely feels proud of all of her accomplishments that don't pertain to witchcraft and powers that were naturally given to her. So for that, I do applaud her. Now, what I didn't like towards the second half of the book is when Diana and Matthew have to go to Sept Tours, Matthew's home in France, for Diana's safety, and she completely loses her sense of self. Because Diana isn't aware of what goes on in the witch community, she doesn't know about the congregation. And the congregation is made up of 3 witches, 3 demons, and 3 vampires who hold very high status in their own communities. And a long time ago, a part of their duties was to make sure that none of them mixed, or none of them basically bred within one another. Because when you're around vampires, demons, or witches, humans tend to take a lot of notice. And so they don't want to have any more reason for humans to catch on to them. So they said, okay, not only can we have to hide ourselves from the humans as individuals, but we definitely can't be with one another. So demons with demons, witches and witches, etc. So no breeding with demons and witches and vampires and witches, etc. So no, none of that. So Diana didn't know about that. So the congregation now comes after Diana and Matthew, so they have to go, to Sept Tours in France. And Matthew takes advantage of Diana's naivete, or I think I'm saying that right. Yeah, naivete. He takes advantage of that and says whatever I say goes. And I'm the leader of this family, so I have to protect you, which is really kind of a letdown, because the whole book, the reason why he started falling in love with Diana was because, she was so bold and brave and stubborn, and she didn't take no for an answer, and she stuck her nose where it didn't belong. And even if she didn't know she was safe, she was going to get through it anyway. And these are very endearing qualities to a fearsome leader, or for someone who is very independent and self-sufficient. And just because she doesn't know what she's doing, he's just like, well, now that we're husband and wife, because they didn't have an official ceremony, it's basically when they said, I love you too. All right, we're married now. He didn't tell her this, by the way. But after they admitted their love for each other, she just became his wife. And because of this whole pack mentality, now she's kind of like the head lioness in her pride. So it's just like, don't worry, I got everything. I'll take care of you. Don't worry about, finances. Don't worry about, anyone coming to bother you. I got this. But I didn't like that. I didn't like Diana having to hand over the reins to someone who keeps saying, I got this. But at one part, he keeps saying, don't worry, if anything happens to you, or if anyone tries to come at you, I will kill them. And it's like, well, you had Juliet, Gerbert, Satu, and Domenico, 4 creatures who either intentionally harmed her or put her in harm's way, but you didn't go after any of them. And then you have Gillian Chamberlain, who was literally just the messenger. She sent Diana a picture of her parents mutilated when they were killed. It was in a newspaper, and she sent this picture to Diana, and because the picture had her scent on it, Jillian's scent on it, Matthew took it as a threat, and he's like, well, I have to protect my woman. And it's like, but you didn't kill the other 4 people. So it's just like, I didn't like the fact that you say that you're going to protect your wife, but you go over the one, I'm sorry, you go after the one person who really didn't have a chance against you anyway. So I thought that was kind of low. He's the kind of person who sets events and motions into play and puts people into place so that he doesn't have to get his hands dirty. And when he has to get his hands dirty, it's really sloppy, because I still feel that. I still feel it. I didn't even know Gillian Chamberlain that well, because Diana didn't want to get to know Gillian Chamberlain, but she was still a sister witch, and she was still part of the community, and they knew her parents, and they know her family. So the fact that you killed this witch who just delivered a message, but didn't kill these, hardcore vampires who went after a wife, is just like, you're not really looking too good there, buddy. And it's just, I didn't like the fact that we're supposed to see this strong female character, Diana, goddess of the hunt, because that's, who she mimics, and that's who she calls upon when she needs help. She calls upon Diana, goddess of the hunt, who is fearful, resourceful, and bold, and stomps down enemies who are in her way. And because of a change in development, now we're just getting another cowering female under a male's protection, and that just kind of made the book go down in a downward spiral. So you may think to say, like, oh, this book is terrible. According to Goodreads, you have some people who would never pick it up, some people who would regret picking it up, some people who absolutely loved it. I gave it a 2 out of 5 on Goodreads. The only reason, honestly, why I'm still going to finish it is because it's part of a trilogy, and I really am looking forward to what the answers hold in the end. So if you want to stay along with me, I am reading Shadow of Night, and it looks pretty good. I think that these characters on the side, this side, I think that this person is supposed to be Diana and this person is supposed to be Matthew. I'm sorry, I am standing by a window because the sun has decided that it's never going to be sunny again. So it was bright for like a day, and the sun was just like, not yet. So I'm working with like cloudy weather right now. I apologize. But I think that's them because when they went, well, there's a little bit of a spoiler. When they went, gotta look at this part. This is where the camera is. Back in time to the old lodge, Diana said that when she was in college, she would change into the actual people that she was trying to imitate for her role. So in Shadow of Night, Diana's hair goes from like a dark strawberry blonde to a long red hair to fit the time period, which makes sense because there's no highlights in 1590. So she would look really out of place. So I think those two characters on the side of the book are Matthew and Diana. As far as like, the independent women thing, it's not going too well. It's not. If anything, it's gotten dramatically worse. And I will be talking about that in the next video. Thanks for tuning in with me with Discovery of Witches. Update on the convention series. I have decided that I'm going to put a little more work into that. I know I said it was coming, but I really want to do a good job on it. And I think I'm going to go above and beyond in like what I can do. I don't want it to be some ragtag basic review. I wanted to like show that I can do a lot more with it. So it's still coming, but probably gonna come around like the summertime when people are going to conventions. So it's on its way, but just it's gonna be on the back burner. For those of you who are sticking around for anime, I'm currently on episode 4 of Majin Bone, so that's coming in the next anime review. But yes, thank you for tuning in with me and coming to the past for Discovery of Witches. So before we head back to the future, right now in the present, if you can like and subscribe this video if you'd like to see more. And you can also go to my other channels or other websites, goodreads.com and Instagram. Instagram is under doll_face. I'm also on my anime list. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye bye.